guys, it's Jasma, and welcome to part 2 of making my Chinese Lunar New Year Eve dinner. Hopefully you've already seen my first video where I showed you how to make the cold dishes, the soup, beverage, and dessert. And in that video, I also explained the cultural importance of this holiday as well as the foods that we're going to make. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make all of the main courses and dishes that take a little bit longer to prepare. Before getting into the recipes, here are a few general time management tips to make things less stressful in the kitchen, since these dishes have some more moving parts compared to the ones in the previous video. Ingredient-wise, try washing and cutting every vegetable and meat you can before you actually start cooking the dishes, and also process the recurring ingredients such as the minced ginger and garlic. Since there are many recipes that call for blanching ingredients in this video, you can do those things all at once ahead of time so you don't have to keep reboiling the water. Just make sure you run all the ingredients under really cold water before setting it aside so that they can stay vibrant in color and taste fresh. Pick out the plates and dishes you plan on using to serve your foods with ahead of time so you don't have to panic last minute once the food is actually ready. And lastly, plan out the order in which you're going to cook your foods and delegate your tasks. I'd recommend preparing the more complex dishes first and the ones that are able to be reheated without jeopardizing its taste and texture, then moving on to the slightly simpler dishes that require to be served immediately, such as the veggies, the steamed egg, and the rice cake. Now onto the food. First, I'm making the whole fish. Here's the written recipe. It is also available in the description down below. In my first video, I explained why having fish is a crucial part of any Chinese Lunar New Year Eve dinner. And regardless of how you cook it, whether that's boiling it, frying it, or searing it, it must be a whole fish with the head and the tail attached. Traditionally, this fish isn't actually meant to be eaten during the feast. You're supposed to look at it and you can eat it the day afterwards. Now, the reasoning behind that is explained in my previous video as for the phrase that this represents. So if you have the fish on New Year's Eve and it's still there in the new year, it kind of shows how you just maintain that happiness and wealth. However, this is just a tradition and some people oftentimes eat the fish anyway. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is just an interesting piece of the cultural background behind the fish. To start, I'm opening up a can of coconut milk and my mom is cutting up the cherry tomatoes and pineapple. For the fish, make a few scores along the surface of a clean whole red tilapia so that it can absorb more flavor, then sprinkle on some salt and spread on some minced ginger. Steam this on high heat for 5 minutes. Meanwhile, mix together equal parts coconut milk and water and add it to a deep pan or pot. Place in the pineapple chunks and cherry tomatoes and turn the heat on to high. Sprinkle in just a little bit of salt. As soon as the fish is done steaming, transfer into this coconut milk mixture. Turn the heat down to medium and constantly glaze the surface with the coconut milk so that the fish can fully absorb all of that coconut and fruit flavors. It only takes about 3 minutes for this to be ready, so do not overcook it. Transfer everything into a dishware of your choice. I have one here that has a lid, so it's able to keep the dish warm while we work on the other recipes. Garnish with a few more cherry tomatoes and pineapple chunks, and I also placed down a few leaves of coriander just to create more color contrast against the red fish and the white coconut milk. Every year, there are always several dishes that are family classics that we cannot miss out on. These are the dishes that just remind us of our childhood and our mom's best cooking. For our family, the two main dishes are sweet and sour ribs as well as pearl meatballs. However, for this meal, we have fish balls already, so we omitted the pearl meatballs, so we opted for the sweet and sour ribs instead. This is a very presentable dish, absolutely delicious, and smells amazing. Begin by cutting the pork back ribs into your desired sizes. You can also ask your butcher to do this when you purchase it. Then on the stove, heat up a pan on high heat, then pour in the olive oil, followed immediately with the ribs. Fry this on high heat, constantly stirring it around until the exterior of each piece becomes nice and golden brown. At this point, make a little well in the middle of the pan so the minced ginger has direct access to the fat so we can fry it and allow it to become fragrant. Give it a mix and then add in the red rock sugar. This is going to give the ribs a beautiful deep red color once it is melted and caramelized. Also pour in the cooking wine, soy sauce, and vinegar. We're only using 1 tablespoon of vinegar right now, the 1 teaspoon is for later on. Stir everything around so the flavors are fully combined. Now pour in the hot water until the ribs are fully submerged. Put on the lid, turn the heat down to medium, and allow this to simmer for around 35 minutes until the ribs are nice and tender. Turn the heat back up and cook this until you are left with a condensed sauce and the majority of the liquid has evaporated. Then finish everything off with that vinegar to replenish its fragrance. The sweet and sour ribs are ready, and technically you can eat it now, but since this is a New Year's Eve dinner that is super important and only once in a year, we of course have to pay a lot of attention on the way that we present it and serve it. The plating is the part that makes me the most excited out of all of these dishes because I think home cooking is often associated with it being a little bit sloppier and just less emphasis on the way that it's presented, but I think that it's super important to also pay attention to the art aspect of culinary arts. So not only does it taste good, it should also look very pretty as well, and that's what makes it different from the foods that you eat on a regular basis. So I'm taking some sesame seeds, which usually you would just sprinkle on top of the ribs, and I'm going to make a fun design out of it. This was inspired from sand paintings, and I found that this technique is actually very easy to do, but it's just so elegant and so different that it's definitely a technique that you should try out as well. Similar to how fish is a must-have at this dinner, it is also important to have some sort of meatball, veggie ball, fish ball, tofu ball, doesn't matter as long as it is a round object. And the reason behind that is because the word round is yuan in Chinese, and that symbolizes reunion, which is tuan yuan. So again, you can see how there's a parallel in simply just pronunciation of it. Since the entire holiday of Chinese New Year is for the purpose of reunion and family, and it's about community, this fish ball kind of just represents that. Making fish balls from scratch can often be viewed as a really challenging and complex process, but it really isn't that difficult now that you have machines that can mix things for you rather than having to do it all by hand. So let's take a look at how we're going to make these ourselves. Since I'm making a pretty big pot of this stew, I'm using 2 fresh Spanish mackerels, but 1 should be enough for a family of 4. I'm having my mom remove the internal organs and gills and just process the fish because she is the fish expert of the family and can do it much better than I can. And you can also ask your butcher to do this or buy pre-processed fish. Here I'm soaking the 2 fish inside of some salt water for about 15 minutes, and this just purifies the fish further. Take your knife and remove the flesh of the fish, and you'll end up with 3 pieces, 2 of which we're using for the fish balls and cake, and the spine is used to make the fish broth. The flesh of a Spanish mackerel is quite soft, so we're just taking some spoons and scraping off the flesh to turn it into the fish balls and fish cakes. There's also some flesh left on the spine, so don't forget to remove that as well. Here I'm making some ginger water, so blend the ginger with the water and then strain away the ginger fibers. To make the fish balls and the fish cakes, I'm doing things the easy way by having a food processor blend the meat until smooth and then using a stand mixer to blend it with the rest of the ingredients. The salt will make the fish mixture much more viscous after mixing, so be sure to add it in the beginning. The egg whites make the fish mixture softer, and the ginger water removes the unpleasant odor. So pour it in 3 separate times and mixing until incorporated after each one. Add in the tapioca starch on 2 separate occasions along with a little bit of white pepper. Keep mixing until this mixture becomes almost bouncy, and it should not fall off the spatula when you lift it up like so. In total, it takes less than 10 minutes for this to be ready, which is significantly faster than the traditional method. So now we can shape the fish balls. Grab a handful of the mixture, squeeze it in between your thumb and index finger, and then take a spoon to scoop it into a pot of cold water. Boil this on medium heat until all the fish balls are floating, then remove the foam on top. For the remaining fish mixture, we're going to make the fish cakes, so just mix it with the egg yolk so that it becomes slightly yellow, and transfer the mixture into a wide greased bowl. Smooth out the surface, and steam for 10 minutes until it becomes solidified. Now to make the fish broth, place the fish head, bones, and skin directly into a dry pan and fry this without any oil until it becomes brown and its own oils are released. Now add in the garlic and ginger and fry until fragrant. Pour in 3 cups of hot water to speed up the process and boil for 5 minutes, then strain everything and the fish broth is ready. A really important ingredient that we're using inside of this stew are bamboo shoots. Bamboo shoots are grown from the roots of bamboos around fall. It is a really crunchy vegetable, and it just has a very nice flavor to it that a lot of people like to use it in their dishes. The significance about these bamboo shoots is an association to the bamboo itself, because when you look at a bamboo, it has these segments as it grows, and that kind of signifies growth. So by eating bamboo shoots, which is the part that you can actually eat from a bamboo, this means that you're hoping for the year to progressively get better in the future. Here's the bamboo shoot. We're going to peel this and slice into thin slices. While I peel the celtuce, my mom is cutting up the steamed fish cakes and also thinly slicing up the celtuce. Now prepare a pot of boiling water, add some salt to it, and blanch the celtuce for 30 seconds, then immediately run under really cold water to preserve its bright color, and then do the same with the bamboo shoots. To assemble, I'm placing the bamboo shoots on the bottom of my cast iron pot, arrange everything else into this pattern, and top it off with the fish broth. Place it onto the heat and gently allow it to come to a boil. Sprinkle in some salt and white pepper for taste, and now it's ready to be served. Having a nice and colorful pot of lamb belly stew at the dinner table is super great for the holidays because it just has a lot more spirit, and also because lamb itself is really great to be eaten during the winter time due to the fact that it has warming properties. So this stew is just going to make it feel really nice and cozy. Begin by placing the chunks of lamb belly and ribs into a deep pan or pot filled with cold water along with the ginger and cooking wine so that we can blanch to remove the impurities. Once the water comes to a boil, drain away the excess water and wash the foam off of the lamb. Place it directly back into a clean pot without any oil, place on the lid so that we can dry out the lamb, and then proceed to cook it until the fat is all released. The exterior of the lamb should also become golden brown. Once it reaches this stage, take out the lamb and remove the majority of the fat that has come out of the lamb. Using the remaining fat, fry the minced ginger, garlic, green onion knot, and coriander head, and cook this until fragrant. Then add in the rock sugar, along with the lamb that was previously removed. Give everything a quick stir. Pour in the cooking wine, dark soy sauce for color, and regular soy sauce for taste. Give everything a quick stir, then turn off the heat. In order to give this dish its really intense flavor, it's important that we use a variety of different spices. So I'm adding all of my ingredients into my stainless steel mesh seasoning pouch. Quickly wash all of these ingredients, then placing the pouch on the bottom of the Instant Pot, along with all of the meat, enough water to submerge the lamb, and cooking this on high pressure for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, prepare the rest of the ingredients by chopping the rainbow carrots into chunks. I think this adds a really nice color. And I'm also taking some bean curd sheets, cutting them into rectangles, and then rolling them and tying them into a knot. This step does take a little time, but luckily it's easy to split up the workload, so here I'm having my mom help me out. Once the lamb is done cooking, remove the spice pouch, green onion knot, and coriander head, then pour everything into a cast iron pot along with the carrots and bean curd knots. At this point, you can remove some of the excess fat if you would like, then add some salt to taste and allow this to come to a boil, then simmer on medium heat for around 15 minutes. For a meal like this, where there are multiple different dishes that are going to be served all at once, obviously you aren't able to make them all at once and then serve them all at once, so there is going to be a little bit of time between once it's actually done and once it gets onto the table. So it's important to use appliances like this cast iron pot that can keep your food warm so that it stays fresh and really delicious once you actually get to serve it. At this point, this should be smelling amazing and it is ready to be eaten. Keep the lid on so that it stays warm and be sure to sprinkle on some fresh coriander right before serving. Now on to making the garlic shrimp with vermicelli. Make sure you wash the shrimp so it's clean before you start to take it apart, because we actually need to use the shrimp tamale inside of the shrimp's head, which is this really gooey orange stuff that has a lot of rich flavor. If you wash the shrimp after you've taken everything apart, you are effectively washing away the precious shrimp tamale, and it's going to lose out on all of that flavor that we can later use inside of the shrimp stock. Here I'm using 6 big shrimp, and my mom is going to remove the head, the shell, but keep the tail intact. Cut the back of the shrimp to remove its intestine. Remove the stomach, which is this black part in the head, but make sure you don't lose any of the tamale, which is the orange paste. Gently cut a slit in the middle of the shrimp so you're able to feed the tail through it and form almost like a knot, like so. We're using the shrimp stock to cook everything together because the vermicelli is actually going to absorb all of this flavor. If you just use water, it's not going to have the nice, rich flavor that we actually want in this dish. To make the shrimp stock, add some olive oil into a heated pan, fry the minced ginger and garlic, Add in the shrimp head and shells and fry this until it changes into an orange color. Add in some hot water and boil for 3 minutes. Then simply strain away the shrimp head and shells and you're left with your shrimp stock. Prepare the vermicelli by soaking it in some warm water, and once it becomes soft, drain away the water. Peel the white radish and shred into long strips. If you don't have the tool I do here, you can just also cut it with a knife. Blanch the white radish, and once the water comes to a boil, take it out and rinse it under cold water and drain. For the garlic sauce, add the butter and garlic into a pan and fry it until fragrant. Make sure you're using butter because it provides the best flavor. Then also add in the oyster sauce, stir until combined, and set it aside for later. I'm lining my shell cast iron pot with the white radish. Then I'm bundling my vermicelli into 6 different portions so we create a nest for the shrimp. Place the shrimp in the middle, make sure it's standing upright. Now pour in enough shrimp stock so that the vermicelli is fully submerged. Then generously spoon the garlic sauce onto the shrimp. Place on the lid, then boil this on high heat for 3 minutes. The shrimp does not take a long time to cook at all, so make sure you don't overdo it. Before serving, sprinkle on some green onion and white pepper. The vermicelli and Chinese radish is going to continuously soak up the flavors of the shrimp stock, so this is overall a very delicious dish. This dish is a little tricky because if you let it sit for too long, the vermicelli will become soggy since it's going to keep soaking up the shrimp stock. So prepare the ingredients ahead of time, then right before you're ready to serve, pour in the shrimp stock, boil it, and then immediately eat it. The steamed egg with XO sauce scallops and veggies looks like something that is super fancy and served in a restaurant, but it's actually surprisingly easy to put together. You just need to pay a little bit more attention to the way that you present it, and it's going to just feel really sophisticated and wow your family or your guests and your friends. The fun part about this dish is that you can make everything all at once. While you're steaming the egg simultaneously, you want to prepare the scallops and vegetables, and then everything's just going to come together all at once. Starting off, we're going to prepare the vegetables, so chop the asparagus and bell peppers into smaller pieces. Then beat an egg using some chopsticks because we're traditional that way, and season with salt and pour in some warm fish broth. Give everything a mix and strain away the foam and any sort of clumps into a deep dish. Steam this for around 6 minutes until solidified. Meanwhile, blanch the asparagus and corn kernels for around 30 seconds, then rinse under cold water and drain. Make sure your scallops are washed and dried and seasoned with a little bit of pepper, then sear in a pan using some butter. My scallops are pretty big, so I seared the first side for 2 minutes and the other side for 1 minute. Make sure they're not overcooking them. Once they're golden brown, take out the scallops. To the remaining fat, add in the minced garlic and XO sauce, fry until fragrant, and then add in the vegetables. Do not overcook this, it should take a minute maximum because you want to keep them really fresh and vibrant. To assemble, arrange the seared scallops on top of the steamed eggs, then spoon on the vegetables and a little more XO sauce. This one is homemade by my friend, but they are also available in Chinese supermarkets. I'm garnishing with the tip of some green onion so it sticks up almost like grass. I think it gives us a very interesting look. That is it with this dish. Make sure you serve it immediately or as soon as you can, because if you let it sit out for too long, it's going to lose its shine, look kind of old, and it's going to ruin the surface of the steamed egg. For this feast, we already have lots of meat involved, so to create balance, we're going to introduce 2 veggie dishes. First one is going to be a salad served cold, and secondly, a dish that is very quick to put together but served warm. The good thing about making the salad is that you can prepare all of the ingredients ahead of time, assemble it, and then before serving, just drizzle on a little bit of that dressing and it's ready to go. This is a really colorful dish, and we're using lots of different veggies just to make all of the colors really pop, and it's also a very delicious and healthy mix. To start things off, using a mandolin, I'm slicing some steamed yellow and red beets and cucumber. You can also just dice these if you don't plan on rolling it up like I do later on. Then just mix together the rest of your ingredients and place onto your desired serving platter. So I wanted to make things a little more interesting since salads typically look pretty similar, so I rolled up the beets and cucumbers like so. In terms of the dressing, I'm keeping things incredibly simple, so I just mixed together some lemon juice and olive oil, and you want to drizzle this onto the salad immediately before you serve it. That's it with the salad. It's incredibly simple, but it's definitely a must-have at a dinner table where there are so many indulgent foods, so this just gives you balance by providing a dish that is a little bit lighter. Lastly, we're making a stir fry. Stir fry is the most versatile dish here because you can change the quantity depending on how much you want to make, and you can also use whatever vegetables you have on hand and is in season, because either way it's going to be a really nice blend and the flavors are all going to come together really well. The key to success with this dish is to not overcook your veggies. You only need to cook it about 70% to 80% of the way, and if you do end up overcooking it, it's just not going to have the same crunchy and fresh texture and look to it as well. Begin by cutting your ingredients into smaller pieces. You can also change up the ones you use to match your preferences. Also prepare the slurry before you start cooking by mixing together the oyster sauce, water, and cornstarch. To avoid overcooking the final stir fry, we're separately blanching the ingredients that take a little longer to cook. So boil the vegetables for about 30 seconds in the water with the oil and salt, which makes it more vibrant in color. Then run under some cold water and drain. To a dry pan without any oil, add in the king oyster mushrooms and cook this until it releases its excess moisture and becomes fragrant. Now add in the olive oil so that we can fry the minced garlic until that becomes fragrant as well, and add in all the other ingredients. At this point you want to work quickly so the vegetables can stay fresh and crunchy and not overcooked. Pour in that slurry and cook it just until it becomes thickened and you can see it coats the vegetables. Finish everything off by drizzling on some sesame oil, giving that a stir, and immediately turning off the heat. Transfer into your serving platter and sprinkle on some roasted cashews, and that is it with this wholesome, colorful vegetable stir fry. You might have heard about how dumplings are a must-have for Chinese New Year, but that's actually not the case for all people, because China is a huge country and people living in different regions have different traditions. So for those people living in the north, dumplings are indeed a must-have, but those living in the south typically eat things such as rice cakes or tangyang, which are just glutinous rice balls. I have made videos for those before, so you can go check those out if you want more flavor ideas. Other people also just maintain the tradition of eating rice, which is very common in a Chinese diet, and the tradition behind that is you can't finish the entire thing. People will often like to leave just a little bit of rice left over or don't finish the entire bowl at all, and this correlates with the same idea of the fish not being eaten at the dinner table so that you leave some extra for your future to ensure that you have happiness and wealth for a very long time. Today I'm not going to be making any dumplings, so we're going to make purple sweet potato and yam rolls instead, as well as some glutinous rice cakes with red bean paste. The purple sweet potato and yam rolls are meant to embody the phrase 紫气东来, which means bringing you luck and an auspicious future, essentially. It was very difficult to translate it word for word, but that's the overall meaning of it. During the Chinese New Year, people have the tradition of sticking Spring Festival couplets outside their doors, so they would have 2 on the sides and 1 on top, and this phrase is usually put on the very top to wish people, again, a very lucky future. And this is embodied by our purple sweet potatoes because the word 紫 in this phrase is purple. To make these rolls, I'm first peeling the Japanese yam and Hawaiian purple sweet potatoes and then cutting them into large chunks so that it can cook faster. Be sure to wear gloves when you're working with yam because the sticky stuff here is going to make your hands really itchy. Steam them both for about 30 minutes until they are soft and a fork can easily be inserted. Then take them out and immediately blend into a puree. I microwaved this for 3 minutes before using because Japanese yam has a lot more moisture to it. The Hawaiian sweet potatoes, on the other hand, is a lot drier, so I added some sweetened condensed milk just to hold it together and kind of allow it to blend into a smooth paste as well. To assemble, spread the purple sweet potatoes into a rectangular shape on a large sheet of plastic wrap, and then spread on a layer of yam on top. Leave a little bit of space on both sides, roll it from both sides inwards to form a ruyi roll, allow it to refrigerate until hardened, and then slice into thick slices. Both of the ingredients that we're using are incredibly healthy, and the way that it is assembled makes it much more interesting and delicious as well. Glutinous rice cakes, called siba in Chinese, is pretty similar to rice cakes called niangao in Chinese. They are both made of glutinous rice. However, glutinous rice cakes are typically a Chinese New Year special. For my mom, this was something that she was only able to eat during this time. To make this, of course, you need some glutinous rice, so give it a quick rinse, drain away the water, and then fill up the container with water again so that we can soak this overnight. You need to allow the rice to absorb enough water so that it can actually become sticky once you steam it. You can see the difference here between the soaked and unsoaked rice. Drain away the water and then directly place the rice on top of a steaming rack, spreading it out, and then poking a few holes inside of the rice so the heat can be released and spread out evenly. Steam this on high heat for around 40 minutes, and then once the rice is cooked, immediately transfer into a stand mixer bowl. Mix on low speed using a paddle attachment until the grains of rice become broken down and you're left with a sticky mixture. You can also do this by hand using a mortar and pestle, but that is a lot more work. Thoroughly grease a container using some non-stick cooking spray to prevent the rice from sticking, because it most definitely will without the grease. Transfer half of this rice mixture and flatten it out on the bottom of the container. For the filling, I'm using some red bean paste. You can use anything you like or not have any sort of filling at all. I made my own red bean paste, but these are also available for sale pre-made in supermarkets. Layer on the rest of the glutinous rice mixture, flatten it, and then place into the fridge to chill for at least 4 hours or until firm. To make the soybean powder, I'm roasting some soybeans at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes until the surface becomes slightly browned. Then transfer into a blender and blend until it becomes a fine powder. For the syrup, allow the brown sugar and water to come to a boil in a pot on high heat without stirring it, then simmer on medium heat for a few minutes until it becomes thicker. 4 hours later, the rice cakes should be super firm, so you can just easily pop it out of the container and cut it into the sizes that you would like. To cook, I'm pan frying my rice cakes, but you can also deep fry if you would like. So heat up some oil inside of a non-stick pan, leave enough space between each rice cake, and just fry all sides until it becomes slightly browned and crispy. Serve as soon as you can, because if the rice cakes become cold, they're no longer going to be soft and sticky, and they will also lose its crispiness. So I'm just arranging the sugar syrup, soybean powder, and the rice cakes onto a platter. To eat this, I like to dip the rice cakes into the syrup first so that the soybean powder can stick to it a little better, but you can also do it the other way around or drizzle the syrup on top. There really are no rules as to how you consume this. That's it with making this Chinese Lunar New Year's Eve dinner. Even though there is a huge emphasis on food when it comes to the celebration, at the end of the day, it truly is about spending time with your family and friends, so it is important for you not to feel really burnt out after creating this entire feast and not even being able to enjoy it yourself. It can be quite stressful and daunting to have to tackle so many different dishes all at once and have it all done in one day. If you look at it really, you are able to space out the tasks and do certain things ahead of time and be strategic in the kitchen to make your life a little bit easier. So I hope that this has inspired you and helped you out, and also made you learn a little bit more about the Chinese culture if this isn't something that is a tradition in your family and you did not know anything about it before. According to the lunar calendar, this new year is going to be the year of the ox, and the New Year's Eve is going to fall on February 11th of 2021. So I wish you all an early happy Lunar New Year. Thank you so much for watching these videos, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!